Do it until people say, "Are you really going that far? Are you mindful of what you eat every day?" If you think you're being pretty careless about it, the price you'll eventually pay will far outweigh any benefits you're currently receiving. Your relationships should come first in life. Read books. People who don't learn will continue to have their time and money taken advantage of. Being energetic and smiling pays off. A new life only begins the moment you believe in yourself and jump. No matter what, you have the right to love yourself. When you feel like denying yourself, tell yourself, "My life is the best. I can do it. I have worth. I can overcome any adversity." Hey, I'm Emma, with Wealth Builder. As they say, life has its ups and downs, and we humans sometimes experience suffocating, painful moments. Even if we wish, I never want to go through that again. Unfortunately, history repeats itself, and people don't change that easily. No matter how much we learn from painful experiences, difficulties will always come in different forms. Rather than turning a blind eye and seeking temporary comfort, it's more realistic to prepare for what's to come. Because life doesn't have an A/B test, and there's no answer to the question, what if I had chosen differently back then? That's why we have no choice but to believe in the lessons learned from past experiences and prepare for the future. In this video, I'll be introducing the top 10 things you'll regret not realizing sooner in life. If even one thing you see resonates with you by the end, it could be the catalyst for a dramatic change in your life. Alright, let's dive into number 10 on the list of things you'll regret not realizing sooner in life. Being a nice person has no value. You need people who dislike you. When you grow up and people say, "Oh, you're such a nice person," it usually means you're harmless. In other words, you don't bother anyone or rock the boat. But if you flip that around, it means the benefits of being with you are unclear, but at least you're not a nuisance. But who's a bad person? I'm not talking about people who are drunk, super stressed, mentally unstable, or in a complicated relationship. Being a nice person as an adult is a given. It just means you have social etiquette and manners. So, being nice isn't what sets you apart. Just to be clear, I'm not saying the people who say you're a nice person are bad. I'm also not saying good people or those with manners are bad. Kindness, sincerity, manners, and morals are all important. What I'm trying to say is, instead of just being a nice person, aim to be someone who makes people want to engage and have fun with you. It's not that eccentric or edgy people are more valuable as human beings, it's about different directions people take. Unfortunately, in today's society, just being a nice person won't get you very far. You need to have something that makes you stand out, something that makes people want to connect with you on a deeper level. Nobody can do everything. In the limited time of our lives, it's only when we have a strength that someone needs that we become truly valuable. Being needed by someone means being disliked by someone else. For example, many people are repulsed by my lifestyle, which is like a productivity slave. But society functions because there are people like you who find this productivity slave lifestyle interesting. Taking a position where you express your own opinions, even if unintentionally or without malice, means hurting someone. Find your unique strength, embrace the fact that not everyone will like you, and focus on connecting with those who appreciate your value. Go the extra mile, push yourself to the limit. Many people struggle with the question, what are my strengths? Sometimes, it's more important to take action before you overthink. For example, my strength is thorough research. When I introduce a hairdryer, I'll research every single hairdryer on the market, study their principles, read any available papers, and spend 3 hours touching and testing hairdryers at an electronics store. When you go that far, you become incredibly knowledgeable. People start asking you for advice. And I do this with all kinds of appliances. Most people stop at a certain point, but I keep pushing past those limits. That's how you find your unique edge. In the business world I've encountered, the people who achieve results are the ones who become obsessed. If they start martial arts, they train so intensely you'd think they were professional fighters. If they start bouldering, they build a bouldering wall in their own homes. They go to the point where people ask, "Wow, you're really going that far?" They're seen as eccentric, crazy, someone you can't emulate. But it's precisely because they push themselves to that extreme that they gain unique insights. And that's what becomes their strength. It's about diving deep into something and finding what makes you stand out by doing what others won't. Nobody starts out with overflowing confidence. Strengths aren't found, they're created. The benchmark for reaching the "are you really going that far?" level is whether people instinctively ask you questions. You don't have to do anything flashy. Just do ordinary things thoroughly. For example, if you love board games, buy 100 of them and play them all. You'll become a board game master. By the time you've played 100 board games, you'll probably be a pro at coming up with interesting concepts. It's important, so I'll say it again: if you're going to do something, do it until people say, "Are you really going that far?" Alright, let's move on to number 9 on the list of things you'll regret not realizing sooner in life. Anxiety thrives in idleness. Don't give yourself the luxury to be unhappy. If your head is filled with anxiety, your days are stressful, and you're dissatisfied with your life, it's because you have too much free time. Idleness breeds unhappiness. This isn't just my opinion, it's a generally accepted trend from the perspectives of psychology and neuroscience. Harvard psychologists conducted an experiment with approximately 2,000 participants and found that people spend 46.9% of their waking hours thinking about things other than what they're doing. They're just drifting. And it was also revealed that this drifting state is when happiness levels are at their lowest, while concentration on activities like conversation or exercise leads to higher happiness. This experiment also showed a clear causal relationship. It's not that you become listless and idle because you're anxious about something bad, it's that you feel anxious because you're idle. Many studies show similar results. The human brain has two modes: focused mode and introspective mode. The introspective mode can be good for creativity, but if you've recently had negative experiences and find yourself with a lot of free time, your brain will continue to experience intense stress in this introspective mode. Humans tend to remember negative things more easily, so having free time can make you more prone to negativity. Personally, the gym really helped me. When I'm pushing myself to my limits, I don't have time to think about negative things. Even during short commutes, I'd read manga or watch engaging anime or foreign dramas to avoid thinking negatively. So, fill your time with things that engage you, and you'll find your anxiety lessens. Not all free time is bad, but it can make you more prone to negativity. So, here's an action plan for you. When you're feeling anxious, write it down on paper and create a to-do list of immediate actions. Of course, this doesn't apply to those with clear symptoms of depression, but when you're feeling down, bothered, or unmotivated, that's precisely when you need to move. To do this, write down your anxieties, decide what you're going to do, and ideally, go outside. Don't stay home alone with your anxieties and worries. Your home lacks stimulation. Environments with more stimulation can help you avoid overthinking. Alright, let's move on to number 8 on the list of things you'll regret not realizing sooner in life. If you make someone emotional, it's game over. You can create all sorts of seemingly logical arguments, but people often act on emotions rather than logic. For example, you can create plausible arguments for both marriage leads to unhappiness and marriage leads to happiness. Marriage leads to unhappiness arguments might say it limits your freedom, involves interference from others, and it's better not to enter into such a contract. Marriage leads to happiness arguments might say that life inevitably has its hardships, and having an irreplaceable partner provides deep security and happiness during those times. Both sound reasonable, right? You might think, we can just look at the data and get a clear answer. For example, you might argue that married people have a higher happiness index. But even if you present such data-based arguments, someone can always counter with claims like the sample is biased or things will change in the future. Or, that might have been true in the past, but things are different now, or the prerequisites for happiness are changing. You can come up with endless counter-arguments. In other words, a battle of correct arguments is futile. Our society operates on double standards. It's not A or B, but A and B. We tend to think there's a right answer to life, but that's not the case. We often assume there's an absolute truth in this world, but it's people's emotions that drive things. For example, the feeling of "I like this" moves the person in front of you, moves many people, creates a market, and then logical arguments emerge. Adopting an attitude of "this is the absolute truth" is intellectual stagnation. What I'm trying to say is, the idea that I'm absolutely right is wrong. Always leave room for interpretation in your communication. You can improve your communication skills through training. For example, you could say something like, "I'm really sorry if this is off, but I was thinking this might be even better if we did it this way. What do you think?" Person's name. I used to dislike such roundabout expressions. I thought, stop with all that layered politeness, just say what you mean directly. Let's fight with logic. But I was wrong. In everyday conversations, always leave room for interpretation. And mental well-being is also important for maintaining that mental. So, ditch the absolute "I'm right" attitude, and focus on building genuine connections through open communication. Alright, let's move on to number 7 on the list of things you'll regret not realizing sooner in life. Ride the big wave. To achieve consistent results, it's crucial to ride the big wave of the times. In today's era, the world is changing due to technology, especially AI. Opportunities arise within these global shifts. Even with incredibly smart people working their hardest, you can't expect to achieve massive success with just a little effort. Successful people have experienced many failures along the way. Continuously keeping up with new technologies and societal changes is what riding the big wave means. Right now, it's AA. But new technologies might emerge. Keep pursuing them. Information gathering is easy in this day and age. Watch news programs on YouTube. Check out X. You can do it in short bursts of time. Each small step accumulates into significant results. Don't let the fear of missing out keep you stagnant. Embrace the future and ride the wave of innovation. Alright, let's move on to number 6 on the list of things you'll regret not realizing sooner in life. The price you pay for not caring about what you put in your mouth is huge. Are you mindful of what you eat every day? If you think you're being pretty careless about it, the price you'll eventually pay will far outweigh any benefits you're currently receiving. I used to drink more cola and energy drinks than water in my 20s. I also ate whatever was convenient. One day, after years of this lifestyle, I felt a strange pain while returning from lunch. I'd been feeling some discomfort, but this was different. I developed reflux esophagitis, which affected my work. I used to think, caffeine overdose isn't a problem. A balanced diet? Who cares? I've been fine all this time. Caring about food is for people with too much time on their hands. This thinking was completely wrong. Since then, I've been making sure to eat my vegetables. Especially after I started focusing on controlling my blood sugar, my mood has improved significantly. The biggest thing is, if you want to be mindful of what you put in your mouth, there's really no option other than cooking for yourself. Having your partner cook for you or hiring a home cook is also good, I suppose. But ultimately, it's quicker to just cook for yourself. Cooking is easy, just find something that looks delicious on YouTube and make it. If you keep at it, you'll definitely get better. You'll also learn to quickly and deliciously cook with leftover ingredients. That way, you can control every meal. Don't just buy something random and call it a day. Cook for yourself. Alright, let's move on to number 5 on the list of things you'll regret not realizing sooner in life. There are people you shouldn't associate with in life. Remember when we were kids and told, let's make 100 friends. Let's get along with everyone. When you're in a group you can't control, like a school class, you might have to bend a little to get along. But it's different when you become an adult. The idea that you have to get along with everyone is a lie. There are people you shouldn't associate with. Surround yourself with those who uplift you, not those who drain you. Now, the people I'm talking about here aren't absolutely bad people. It's more about compatibility. Someone you might find incredibly annoying could be seen as a great person by their friends or family. So, I'm not trying to label anyone as a villain, but rather referring to people in your own life that you shouldn't associate with. When you encounter such people, the only option is to escape. Put distance between yourselves as quickly as possible. Protect your peace and prioritize your well-being. There are 3 patterns of people you shouldn't associate with. First, people who get emotionally volatile and snap easily. They suddenly yell or get angry during a conversation. They explode emotionally over a single word or two. But they don't get angry at everyone. When you see them act like that, you start to wonder if you're the problem. Of course, everyone gets frustrated at times, and we all say things emotionally on occasion. The problem is with people who do this repeatedly on a daily basis. During drinking parties, commutes, or any spare moment, they're always complaining about the company is bad, my boss is bad, that person is bad. They'll say things like, that person seems nice, but apparently, without saying it to their face. Even if you try to steer the conversation towards positive topics, they immediately revert to negativity. No matter how much energy you invest in trying to bring them around, it's a waste of time. They just want to validate themselves by complaining and gossiping. They're escaping to the easy way out. Trying to change them is a waste of time. Nothing in life changes unless you take action yourself. Third, people who are always negative. Even if you try to help them, like by pointing out their good qualities and trying to uplift them, it's still no use. They never take action. They'll say, I tried, but it's just not for me. It's a waste of time. You might think, I'm not trying to change them, but giving them a chance to change when they're suffering is a good thing, right? You're wrong. It's almost impossible to change people with the 3 characteristics I just mentioned. If you're not careful, you might end up agitating them and causing trouble. I'm not saying you should go out and eliminate all the bad people. Life is limited. You can't make everyone happy by yourself. You can't do everything. Those who are emotionally volatile, those who constantly complain and gossip, and those who lack self-confidence. Even if you put in a lot of effort to communicate with them, you'll just end up having your time and energy drained, and nothing will change. Here's the action plan. Don't spend time with people who make you feel bad. Your relationships should come first in life. If you keep worrying about what others think and drag out toxic relationships, you'll break down. Only you can protect yourself. Don't label people as bad, but rather focus on those you can positively influence. There are many people whose lives you can improve with your efforts, so don't waste time on those you're incompatible with. Distance yourself from those you shouldn't associate with. It's not weakness, but courage to value yourself. Your mental health matters, so choose your company wisely. Alright, let's move on to number 4 on the list of things you'll regret not realizing sooner in life. Those who don't learn will continue to be exploited. Read books. People who don't learn will continue to have their time and money taken advantage of. To give you a simple example, they'll end up with obviously low return, almost pointless insurance policies. They'll invest in shady investment products. They'll choose whatever someone recommends without doing any research. They won't even compare prices online. People who don't learn lose out. Opportunities to be exploited are everywhere in everyday life. The scary thing is, ignorant people don't realize they're ignorant. You might think, I'm not losing out. For example, my first engineering job paid $1,500 a month. When I consulted with a senior engineer at another company, he was furious. He told me, that's way too low. You should be getting at least $3,500. So, I asked my employer for $3,500. And instantly, they said, sure, I thought it was too low too. They weren't being malicious. The problem was that I didn't know the market rate. Just by asking, my salary went up by $2,000 a month. And it's not just me. You can research your market value. Your stance should always be to ask for a raise. Of course, if you ask for a raise without any achievements, you'll be told to produce results first. While money isn't everything, it's important to learn about your market value and industry standards. People who don't learn often end up paying exorbitant interest rates on loans and payments. They think it'll work out somehow and end up paying ridiculous interest. The problem is that they don't understand the system, don't do the calculations, and just think, oh, it's fine. People who don't learn get scammed. You'll still see things like, anyone can make $2,000 a month with this side hustle. Even those who have studied a bit think, who would fall for that? But there are a lot of people who believe in easy money. There are 3 reasons why people who don't learn get exploited. The first reason is that they can't create their own choices. The cryptocurrency world is like this right now. It's a great opportunity. If you don't buy, you'll lose out. They just buy it. But if you look at it calmly, it's just one investment option. Do you understand the pros and cons compared to other options? People who don't learn believe what others tell them. They believe the conveniently edited short video they happen to see. Because they can't come up with their own options, they can't compare and consider, and they end up losing out. The second reason is that they can't distinguish between lies and truth. They find a cosmetic product online that promises to solve their insecurities. It's full of appealing claims. People who don't learn can't research the evidence themselves. They think, it's trending, so it must be good, or the reviews are great. They don't try to understand the underlying principles with their own minds. They pay money for something that's all marketing and no substance, thinking, I don't want to miss this opportunity. Don't let flashy marketing fool you. The third reason is that they get left behind by the times. We're in the AI era. Society is changing at an incredible pace. With the evolution of technology and changes in social norms, the way we work and the structure of society will undoubtedly change dramatically in the next few years. People who don't learn won't even be aware of these changes. They'll wake up one day and realize, when did AI become so prevalent and make my role obsolete? The most powerful action plan to avoid becoming someone who doesn't learn and keeps losing out: read books. Even though you can gather information from AI and social media, why books? The biggest appeal of books is the space they give you. For example, when you gather information from short videos, they're easy to watch and interesting, but you're bombarded with information. There's no room for you to think. But what about books? There's space to think, how can I apply this learning to my work? You can engage your imagination and supplement the information with your own knowledge and experience, learning interactively as if you're creating a story together with the author. While you can use AI to learn in a way that's similar to reading books, creating that same experience by writing your own prompts isn't really practical. The beauty of books also lies in the serendipitous encounters. When you ask AI something, it's usually because you already have some kind of trigger or knowledge. The opportunity to encounter something you didn't know at all comes from deciding to read a book. A single book is packed with the author's learnings and worldview. And they're often organized systematically. You can absorb all that in a few hours. Reading books is a learning experience with better cost performance. I know this because I'm also sharing information like this. As I mentioned earlier, short videos and brief articles are fragmented. Books, while they may seem long and roundabout, explain the logic carefully, and you can understand them at your own pace. Reading just one book a month can dramatically change your life. You don't have to read a lot at once. The world's leading figures are all avid readers. Almost without exception, they have a habit of reading books. While there are some exceptions, many successful people read books. There's no reason not to read. If you can't keep it up alone, start a book club with someone. Learning isn't just from books. But the easiest and most effective way to get results is by reading books. Just read one page today. Even one page a day is fine. The moment you turn that first page, your life will start to move in a big way. Alright, let's move on to number 3 on the list of things you'll regret not realizing sooner in life. Being energetic and smiling pays off. Don't be a grump. If I could say one thing to my younger self, it would be, raise those corners of your mouth. Raise those corners of your mouth. I'd want to jam that mouth stretching tool they use at the dentist for photos right in there and force a smile. Especially in my early 20s, I was always frowning at work. There were various reasons. A compulsion not to be looked down on. Not wanting to be seen as someone who just grins. Not wanting to be seen smiling. I mistakenly thought being cool and having an air of authority was better. The result? Everyone left. Even at work, skills are only important to a certain extent. What's more important is always smiling and talking enthusiastically. The power of being smiling is much stronger than you think. Even now, if you asked me if I'm friendly or cool, I'd probably lean towards cool. But I'm better than I used to be. Here's a question for you all. Are you able to talk to anyone with a 100% sunny smile? If you think you're not, you should try. There are 3 reasons why. Reason number 1, it shortens the distance between you and others. The emotional distance closes, making it easier to talk. You'll look forward to meeting them. When you're smiling, you make a great impression on many people, creating a positive atmosphere at work. Reason number 2, it makes you feel positive too. When you make a smile, your brain mistakes it for happiness. Even if something bad happens, if you keep smiling, you'll actually start to feel happy. You've probably experienced feeling a little better after having fun with friends or family when you were feeling down, right? Reason number 3, it increases your job opportunities. Having a friendly demeanor is important. Even if someone isn't particularly skilled, if they're friendly, their boss might think, he's a good guy, I'll take care of him. That's how humans think. Just by smiling, you can get opportunities you wouldn't normally receive. People who are always frowning are unapproachable, and you can't tell what they're thinking. This reduces communication, and therefore reduces opportunities. Smiling doesn't mean being a pushover. It puts people at ease and earns their trust. You should not be grinning during an apology. I'm not talking about extremes. There are situations where you should have a serious expression, but generally, smiling is important. Here's the action plan: be the most smiling person in the room. People who smile less tend to conform to those around them. I used to be like that too. If everyone's smiling, you'll start smiling too. But always conforming to those around you is a no-go. You should take the lead and be the most smiling and fun person. Specifically, raise the corners of your mouth at the beginning and end of a conversation. I said you should smile, but if you're always smiling, it becomes normal, and people will think you're just someone who's always grinning. Smiling isn't just about the corners of your mouth turning up. It's about the ups and downs. A person who smiles has a lot of fluctuation between serious listening and laughter. It's not about someone who's always laughing about everything. Smile and show your teeth more than anyone else in the room. That's not my character is just an excuse. You'll never lose out. Someone who says good morning with a smile when they walk through the door will always have an advantage in any situation. Forget about I've managed without it or that's not my character. Throw away all your excuses and become the person who smiles the most in the room, every day, like it's training. Alright, let's move on to number 2 on the list of things you'll regret not realizing sooner in life. Most things are possible if you dare to try. Fly. You've got to live the life you want. Don't think about the probability of success. Just decide and do it. You might find that things are surprisingly doable. What happens when you jump into the dark? You have to keep solving problems you've never encountered before, problems you don't even know how to approach. When this continues day after day, what happens to you? You realize that you can figure out most things if you just try. Maybe that's true for you too. We all unconsciously reverse our thinking. The idea that you can do something if you study it properly from the start, like getting good grades on a test if you study, is something you should discard by your early 20s. You learn by doing. There's a famous book that argues that you can master anything if you dedicate 20 hours to it seriously. For example, can you become a professional programmer by studying programming for 20 hours? Of course not. But if you study diligently in a really good environment for 20 hours, you'll have moments where you realize the principles and fun of programming. You'll be able to write simple programs with the help of AI, and even think about bugs yourself. Even if you don't become a pro, trying something for just 20 hours is incredibly important. You'll be able to talk about any field at a knowledgeable level after 20 hours. Read books, ask AI, and ask people who know. Here's the action plan to change your life. Quit doing the moment you think you want to do something. There are so many exciting experiences in this world. Yet, some people feel like their lives are boring. They have a filter. They've convinced themselves they can't do things, even though they'd be fun if they tried. This is a story from a few years ago. I had an engineer at my company who had never been on a sports team, didn't exercise regularly, and had lived an indoor life. At the time, I was obsessed with triathlons, and I invited her along with a friend of mine who was even more into triathlons than I was, saying, "Let's do it." It was mostly a bit of a dare. She said, "But I can't swim. What'll I do?" We told her, if you can't swim, you'll simply drown. Which means, if you sign up for the race, you'll learn to swim. She wasn't particularly athletic. She couldn't swim. She didn't have a bike, and had never ridden a road bike. I thought she'd decline, but she said, "I'll do it." She started by going to swimming lessons, ran on weekends, and with a few months of preparation, she completed the triathlon with me, despite not being able to swim at all initially. Of course, she was slow, and my friend and I had already finished. We were worried she had given up, but then we saw her running towards the finish line, looking determined. Do you know how moving that was? We shouted her name at the top of our lungs, and cried when she crossed the finish line. We hugged each other. No one ever called her an unathletic, indoor person again. She said, "I'm so glad I participated. It changed my life." Experiences where you dared to try something unknown, and it worked out, are treasures for life. Even after days or years, the confidence that I did it remains. Then, you can take another step towards an even bigger challenge. Everyone has curiosity. You must have things you think, "I'd like to try that." But when you try to go in that direction, there's a pitch black, bottomless valley. If you want to do what you want, you have to jump into this darkness. I'll put it off for now. Then you get interested in something else. And again, there's a pitch black valley. You have to jump. Oh, this isn't working either? You keep saying that's no good, this is no good, and end up going nowhere. Just repeating the same days. Before you know it, life passes by. How old are you now? People can challenge themselves at any age. But there are things you can only do in this very moment. The desire to start new activities decreases with age. If you want to make your life more and more interesting, I have only one thing to say. Jump. Even if someone tells you, "Don't do it," even if you fail and they say, "I told you so," a new life only begins the moment you believe in yourself and jump. The best time to do what you want is now. Jump. Most things are possible if you just try. Alright, let's wrap up with number 1 on the list of things you'll regret not realizing sooner in life. Reflect, but don't regret. It's a common saying, but can you explain the difference between reflection and regret in your own words? If you can't, you'll end up denying your own existence every time you fail, and it'll take you longer to get back up. Let's understand the difference between reflection and regret. Reflection is a material to consider what to do next in the place where you belong, such as your friends, family, or workplace. Regret is an act of repeatedly blaming yourself, thinking that you failed because you're incompetent. Reflection is something you do with multiple people, including yourself. You and someone. You and multiple people. You and a crowd. These relationships, such as friendships, family relationships, workplace relationships, and hobby relationships, are collectively called a community. Reflection is done within a community. We say team reflection, but team regret doesn't sound right, does it? Reflection isn't a sorry meeting. It's about creating materials to build a better future from now on. There are no villains in reflection. But, people who confuse reflection and regret end up denying their own worth with reflections like, "This part wasn't good." They think, "I'm bad, I'm worthless, I'm incompetent." I'll say this knowing it's unconventional. No matter what mistakes you make, your worth doesn't disappear. If I say that, you might ask, what if someone commits violence, commits a crime, and gets arrested? Can they still be considered a valuable person? The answer is yes. In the community called society, they'll be condemned. Some people commit crimes that are utterly unforgivable. I'm not saying that those people are not bad in the eyes of society. What I want to say is that it's about your own self-evaluation. You shouldn't deny your own worth. Does that sound arrogant? True arrogance is about not caring how much you bother others and pushing forward while ignoring their position. If you say, even if I make mistakes, my worth isn't denied, after making a mistake, you're imposing your self-evaluation on the community. It's the same as saying, I made a mistake, I did wrong. But I'm still a valuable person, right? So, you shouldn't say it to others. It'll cause resentment. Reflection should be done within the community. People make mistakes. But it's wrong to say, people make mistakes, so it can't be helped. Thinking in your head, I'll reflect, but I won't regret, when you make a mistake isn't arrogant. Rather, constantly blaming yourself, experiencing intense stress, and losing the motivation to do anything is more detrimental to the community. If you make a mistake at work, and you stay home alone, regretting and being shocked, you'll cause more trouble for the company than if you went to work. I'll reflect, but I won't regret isn't arrogance, but courageous contribution to others. The most important message I wanted to convey in this video, no matter how others evaluate you in life, please love yourself. We're all imperfect and have our shortcomings. Sometimes, what we do with good intentions backfires. Here's the action plan for you. Decide that your life, from now until you die, will be the best, no matter what happens. In your future, you'll inevitably experience failures, no matter how hard you try. You'll have days where you feel your inadequacy and feel suffocated. If you decide that your life is over at such times, the people who love you won't be able to see your smile anymore. Someone who looks up to you won't be able to confide in you. Someone who could have been helped by your work or actions won't be able to receive a helping hand. If I had given in to despair and thought I was worthless during the many crises I've faced in the past, you, who are watching this video, wouldn't have met me. This message wouldn't have been born. That's why I can say it definitively. No matter what, you have the right to love yourself. When you feel like denying yourself, tell yourself, my life is the best. I can do it. I have worth. I can overcome any adversity. Then, many people will smile. You can't try to be loved by someone else if you don't love yourself. No matter how much people love you, friends, lovers, or family, they can't live your life for you. It doesn't matter how immature you are now. No matter how many mistakes you make, no matter what your past is like, no matter how old you are now, no matter how much money you have, none of that matters. Everything starts with loving yourself. It's important to reflect on your mistakes. But you can't let regret sink you and stop you from moving forward. I've had my share of lows, but I believed and told myself that my life was the best, no matter what, and I kept moving forward step by step. That's how I was able to come this far, with the support of so many people. And that's why I can talk to you all like this now. The thing you'll regret not realizing sooner in life, only you can love your life. Thank you for watching until the end.